who will stop your little game. We are the boys who will make you think again. 'Cause who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler? If you think old England's done. Mr. Brown goes off to town on the A21, but he comes home each evening.
Welcome back to Red Pen of Destiny. We are, of course, reviewing Dad's Army. Bit of a weird one, this, because it's prefacing future series as well as a current series. Current series being the 1971 series. I'm sure we'll be using this again for future 70s series and possibly a full series of Dad's Army. But Dad's Army, of course, was created by Jimmy Perry and David Croft, the writing duo, who were both members of organizations represented in Dad's Army. Jimmy Perry was in the Home Guard, and David Croft was an air raid warden. The Home Guard, of course, was basically a hodgepodge army of people who couldn't be in the regular army. People with reserve professions who could not go to war because then the country would just break. There's only one represented in the show, but we will talk about that when we go over the cast. It was also for people who were just a year under Army age, so 17-year-olds. There's one represented in the show as well. And the rest were people who were too old to be in the regular Army. So a lot of veterans signed up, veterans of World War I and of past conflicts were signed up for that. But that title sequence you saw is one of my favorite ever title sequences. The way the arrows, just like, it's just a simple animation, but I like it. They go and they go, uh-oh, going back, and you can see the Dunkirk retreat, evacuation, whatever you want to call it. I think it's very entertaining, and I love the theme tune. Do you think you will? It's just it's the attitude of the time, and it's just so on the nose. So 2 positives right off the bat there. And since we talked about Jimmy Perry and David Croft already, may as well give them a positive for writing. Positive each, shall we say? So we're already at 4, just in general. So that'll be added to every episode, of course. Then we have all of the great characters, who, you know what, are going to get probably a plus for most and a plus for the actor or actress as well. First character is Captain George Mainwaring, spelt Mainwaring. There's some jokes, plenty of jokes about that, played by Arthur Lowe, who does a fantastic job, which is something most of these actors do. He's got a lot of parts where he just reacts to something just with his face, and it's just more than some actors can do with just lines, and it's. But he's, of course, also the bank manager, and he is a middle-class person who tries very hard to go up to upper class, which, of course, isn't really how class systems work. But it's great fun watching him try and be pompous and look down on other people while the people are looking down upon him. And he's not a sad character. I'm not trying to say that. He's very funny in the way that it's done. Then, of course, we have the sergeant, Arthur Wilson, who is kind of the foil to Mainwaring's middle-classness in his upper-classness. He's very upper-class, but he doesn't really care about it. He doesn't look down on anyone or anything. He's a very polite and nice person. He's played by John Le Mesurier, something, who, incidentally, is the only actor who I can place in another series, because he is the prison warden in The Italian Job, which is a small part, but one that required a very talented actor. And he did that while he was in Dad's Army. That would be the year after Dad's Army started. So he also has very good at facial expressions, reacting in a way that, again, some actors cannot beat with actual words. Then we move on to the Lance Corporal, Jack Jones, who's also the butcher. Oh, sorry, Arthur Wilson is second in command of the bank. Just pointing that out. So he's subordinate to Mainwaring in civilian and military. Direct in basically the same position. But Jack Jones the Butcher is a veteran of many conflicts. He has many medals, but he's a bit of a bumbling idiot. That's kind of his role as the clown of the platoon, always falling over, making a mess of things. He has a catchphrase, which actually is one of my least favorite in the show, which is, "They don't like it up 'em." It's funny, but it kind of wears after a while. But he's very adamant on that. Of course, Wilson and Mainwaring are also veterans, but that's downplayed a little bit more. I guess it was just World War I, so they were just regular servicemen. At least Wilson was. Mainwaring, hilariously, served in 1919 in France, the year after World War I ended. Yeah, it's very funny. He gets made fun of a lot for that. Then we move on to the privates. First being James Fraser, played by John Laurie, the Scot of the group and also the town undertaker. He's a very entertaining character. Often tells what start out sounding like ghost stories and then turn out to just be a joke. Though I don't think he's telling the joke in character. I don't think he's meaning to be funny in character, but I'm not really sure how you're supposed to interpret that. But the one that comes to mind is, have you ever heard the tale of the old empty barn? There was nothing in it. And then it's the end of the story. I love that. It's the way he delivers lines. So he says, "Ooh." He often, his catchphrase, I guess, is, "We're doomed. Doomed." And he's got that nice rise in his voice there. It's just, yeah, that's like the whole big cast, good actors. It's amazing. Then we go on to Joe Walker, played by James Beck, who actually died partway through making Dad's Army, about halfway through, I want to say, 1973. He caught some sort of illness, and he wasn't even old. He doesn't play an old. He plays the of age person. He just happens to be in an essential position of wholesale supplier. He supplies essential supplies. I'm not sure. He's a bit of a con artist, so it's not clear if he's conned his way out of that or not, but he does serve in some way, so we can't fault him for everything. But he's always got some scheme. He's trying to sell people's things. There's a lot of rationing at that time, so there's a lot of opportunities to sell contraband, whether that be sausages, which also Jack Jones as the butcher has opportunity to peddle, as it were. And knicker elastic was a big thing. It was a weird thing that was a big thing. Elastic was really hard to find in that time. Oh, and petrol coupons. Yeah, gas was rationed because there wasn't a lot of it around, at least not accessible to the British. And then we move on to the final private, Frank Pike, the young lad of the platoon, played by Ian Lavender. And he is sort of unofficial stepson, I suppose, to Arthur Wilson. So he refers to him as uncle, and he spends the night, and nobody ever mentions that anything's going on, but it's kind of like subtly in there, and it's kind of a nice little subplot that comes up fairly often. But he's just, an eager young kid, often is told off. The stupid boy is one of Mainwaring's catchphrases. I don't think Pike has his own catchphrase, but I could be mistaken. There's, of course, the famous line, "Don't tell him, Pike," because, of course, there's a Nazi U-boat commander. I think that was the episode. And he's taking names. Because he doesn't like what's going on. He's like, "When we win the war, you will be punished." And he's like, "Your name will also go on the list." What is your name? Don't tell him, Pike. Is Captain Mainwaring, and it's great. Of course, giving away his name by saying that, and that's probably the most famous joke of Dad's Army, I think. But moving away from the Home Guard, we have the ARP Chief Warden William Hodges, played by Bill Pertwee, and he is the closest thing to a main baddie of Dad's Army. He's also the grocer, and he's very adamant in his duties as Air Warden, which for Air Wardens mostly consisted of trying to make sure people didn't have a light showing from a window. So his catchphrase then becomes, "Put that light out." So put that light out. It's very hilarious, and he's also competes with Mainwaring for the church hall and for a lot of things, and he's also tries to mess with Mainwaring and make things harder for the platoon sometimes. Then we have the Reverend Timothy Farthing, played by Frank Williams, who's not as interesting a character as any of the other characters, but he's very well acted, and he's in a lot of episodes. He's on every episode, but he's in a lot of episodes, and usually followed by Verger Maurice Yateman, played by Edward Sinclair, his second in command, if you will, if you want to call the church a command, but whatever. And Yateman is very much a suck-up type of person. He's always following the Reverend around, who he refers to him as his reverence. And he often tries to speak for the Reverend, which is funny. I think actually the Reverend's character exists to be played upon by Yateman. Yateman is what makes the Reverend relevant for a lot of the time. And Yateman's actually this weird thing that he reminds me of the character Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys. Just because he has that same sort of big eye look and reactions. He's got the same sort of comedy style, I think, as that actor. I don't know if that was intentional on the actor who played Bubbles. 40, 30 years later? It's just a random thing there. And then the other two main, well, not regular characters, I should say, is Frank's mom, Mrs. Pike, who's a widow, which is where Arthur comes in, or doesn't come in. But she's very well done. She's not a super interesting character, but she's often very doting over Frank. Actually, her characterization is more of Frank saying, "Ooh, my mom wouldn't like it if I was out this late," and stuff like that. Then she comes in and she enforces that idea. And then, of course, there is Mrs. Elizabeth Mainwaring, who isn't actually shown ever. Actually, before I move on, Mrs. Pike is played by Janet Davis. I should mention that. Just, at least in the TV show, she was recast in the movie, but that's a story for the movie episode. But yeah, Mainwaring's wife is never shown on screen. She never speaks. But she is a character. Like, you hear her call up Mainwaring on the phone sometimes. The closest we ever get to seeing her is she's coming down the stairs to a party where the whole platoon has gathered. And we're like, oh, we finally going to get to see Mainwaring? Nope. Air raid siren goes off, runs down the stairs, out the back garden, into the shelter. Without even saying hello. It's very funny. I do like the idea of a character that's never shown, and they took that to the extreme, not even voicing her. But yeah, I think every character will get a positive, and every actor and actress will get a positive. Obviously, Mrs. Mainwaring only gets one positive for being a character, not an actress. But just the way they're acted is excellent across the whole board. Of course, positives for writing. And other positives will be episode-specific. I'm hoping to do the episodes, at least for 1971, very comprehensively. So basically, if there's a joke, I'm going to talk about it. Like, if I thought it was funny, it's going in. So these could end up with some pretty big scores. Not sure if I'll do that if I ever eventually do the full Dad's Army run. Probably be a patchwork of previous content, so if that's what you're about to watch, then enjoy. It might be a little changing in quality, as the episodes will no doubt vary very much in the time they were made, but I do hope you'll enjoy whatever it is that comes after this video.